Good morning, everyone. Pastor Andy here. I am hoping that you are all having a good day and a great week when this video finds you tomorrow morning. Um, Hi, it's good to see all of you. What you up to? Cool. I like to hear y'all's plans, and when we get together again, I'd love to hear more about some of the cool things y'all have been doing in the new school year. But for right now, we're gonna do another Bible story, which is a lot of fun. Let me ask you a question. If who here, now raise your hands at home, who here has seen the Disney movie The Prince of Egypt? I have. Have you? Well, if you haven't, you should. It's pretty good. For those of you who have seen it, who is the main character in The Prince of Egypt? Can you remember the main character's name? That's right. It's Moses. Now, Moses. Hmm. Moses. I've heard that name somewhere before, other than in the movie The Prince of Egypt. Where might I have heard the name Moses? At church, right? Yeah, that's right. We hear it at church all the time. Moses is a big character in the Bible, and he is the leader of the Israelites, the people of God. And what was Moses famous for? By the way, mom and dad, when I kind of pause like that, that's for you to just like pause the video if you want and discuss it with your children. You don't have to, but it's there if you want. So, what was Moses really famous for leading the Israelites out of? He led them out of Egypt. That's right. So you may know the story of God's people, the Israelites, or the Hebrews, as they're sometimes called, being in Egypt and being enslaved, meaning that they were forced to do really hard work that none of us want to do. Like, think of like the worst chore you have, like taking out the garbage. So that's just a chore. Being enslaved means you do stuff way worse than that, and you don't get to have a choice or throw a tantrum. Because if you do, you get locked up. It's not fun. So Moses saves his people, the Hebrews or the Israelites, from slavery and helps them get out of Egypt. And then what happens? If you've seen the movie, you'll know. They come to the Red Sea, right? Big old Red Sea, and Pharaoh's got the big old army, and he's following them, and he's gonna catch them because he wants them back, because he used to be their master. He was the one that made them do all the weird, bad slave stuff, and they didn't like that. So Moses, with God's help, is able to part the waters of the Red Sea. I know y'all remember that because it's pretty cool. And they walk across on dry land, the Hebrews, and they get to the other side. And then the sea closes up and just swallows up all of Pharaoh's army. That's the story we all know. But do you know what happens after that? I bet not as many of you know what happens after that with God's people. Well, they kind of make a bunch of mistakes. They disobey God a lot. And so God tells them, you know what? You're not ready to go home yet. You've been throwing tantrums, and I think you need some time out and some time to think to yourself and kind of learn from your lessons. And so God kind of puts them in time out for 40 years, which is a long time, right? So they have to wander through the wilderness, kind of like a desert. If you ever seen a desert, you ever been up to like Big Bend or something? That's like a desert. They have to wander through the wilderness for 40 years, and that's not fun. And let's see, they have to do a lot of camping, right? Because when you're in the wilderness, you got to make a camp and you got to hike and do a lot of camping. So imagine doing that for like a really long time. Okay. Well, let's see. If you're camping, you need a couple things, right? You need a tent, right? You need something to start fire. Okay, got that taken care of. But you need to eat and drink water, right? Because we kind of got to have that stuff to live. And what kind of things do you bring with you camping to eat? Okay, you may bring like marshmallows or chocolate or graham crackers to make a s'more. Let's see what else. You can bring hot dogs. That's a thing that we love to camp with. We like to roast them over the fire and make hot dogs, right? But what if you didn't have a way to get any of those things? I wonder what you would eat then. I wonder what you would eat if you were in a desert, like a really dry place where there's nothing but cactus and like snakes and scorpions. Those things don't look very good to eat, do they? Uh-uh. So what do you eat? Well, we're going to find out. Because we are going to talk about a story today where God's people, the Israelites, were wandering in the desert for 40 years. And they were super hungry. And it wasn't good. And they started complaining, which is what I do when I get hungry too. I just start growling. Not just my stomach, but me. I actually like to start growling like a bear. And that's not fun. No one wants to see that. So we're going to read a story together entitled Manna, Quail, and Water. Now God loved the Israelites and their leader Moses. God promised to bring the people to a place where they could build homes and live happily ever after. Now they had never lived outside of Egypt before, and they were afraid. Because remember, they hadn't been in the wilderness before. Even though they were slaves, they were still living in Egypt and they still had houses. But God went with them, and they walked long and far to the place that God promised. Traveling was hard, and they were tired. And along the way, the people got really, really hungry. And they complained to Moses, "I'm so hungry," one boy cried. "I wish we could go back to Egypt," whined one little girl. "At least we had food there." Her stomach was growling. The people missed their dinners of meat and bread and hot dogs and pizza and ice cream and Brussels sprouts. No, that's not one that they liked. No, they didn't like Brussels sprouts. What else? Dino chicken nuggets. They had those, I'm pretty sure. So we can see a cool picture here of everyone complaining, right? And they're all telling Moses, "Moses, dude, we are so hungry. Take us back to Egypt. At least when we were slaves, we got to have pizza. I mean, come on. Come on, Moses. Come on." They're throwing a tantrum, kind of like we do when we're hungry. Now, the Israelites didn't know that God heard them complaining. Oh. And that evening, something really strange happened. I wonder what happened. Little tiny birds called quail, little ones with the little thing on their head, appeared everywhere. And God had sent the quails so the people could eat meat. Oh, for the quail. You see the quails right there? You see them? Little cuties. They're kind of cute. This one, he knows what's up. He knows what's about to happen. He's about to become someone's dinner. So he's not so happy. But God provided the quail for the people, for the Israelites, so they could eat meat. So that's really cool. And the next morning, the ground that they woke up to see was glistening with fresh dew. Have you ever gone outside early in the morning? Maybe you're going to the school bus and you see like this liquid that's on the grass. It's called dew. And even after the sun dried up the dew, there was still something covering the ground. It looked kind of like bread. And it had rained down from heaven. And it was called manna. And the manna looked like tiny little seeds. And they tasted just like bread. And the people ate and ate and ate tons of manna. They probably put some milk on it and made like manna cereal. And every day, God sent more manna and more quail so that the people had lots of food to eat, which is pretty great if you ask me. I mean, that sounds like a feast. The Israelites kept traveling toward the place God had promised them. And after a while, they ran out of water. Uh-oh, that's really bad news if you run out of water. Even though God had given them food when they were hungry, the people, they still complained. "My mouth is so dry. It's like a desert around here," sobbed one little boy. And the people were thirsty. This time God told Moses to go out and hit a rock with his walking stick. And when he did, water gushed out of that rock. And the people had more water than they knew what to do with to drink. So God gave food and water to the Israelites every day. God took care of God's people, just like God promised. Let's see here. Over here, we've got them picking up the manna. Look at it. Looks kind of like cereal in a way, like those little corn puffs or something. Anybody eat those? And here you got Moses, and he's hitting the rock, and water coming out like a spring. If you've ever seen one of those. So this is a really good story for us today. And why is that? Well, it's a story about how God provides for us. Provides things like food and water. And that's a really important thing because we need those things, right? None of us can live without food or water. We would all just kind of get sick and dry up and kind of just blow away if we don't have food and water. We always should pay attention to the things that we eat and the things we drink because they're gifts from God, and God wants us to eat and drink good things. But God also wants us to remember that sometimes other people don't have those things. And they cry out to God just like the Israelites did because they're hungry and they're thirsty. And it's our job as Christians to make sure they get things like food and water. And that's why we do stuff like go to the Christian cupboard and we help out and we donate food and we help feed folks, and we just, if someone comes to us in need, we make sure that they get what they need, right? Because that's just part of being a good person and being a good Christian and following Jesus. But I want to talk more about us today. When we are in a tough situation like the Israelites, maybe we've been in a tough spot for a while where things haven't been too fun. Kind of like wandering in the wilderness. You know, I like hiking a lot. I love camping, but if I had to do it all the time, eventually I get pretty tired of it, and I think you probably would too. And it wouldn't be so fun anymore. Well, when we are in those times, we call them wilderness times or desert times or valley times, when they're hard, we can cry out to God, just like the Israelites did. And God will help us, and God will provide things for us to help us get through it, whether that be food or water or just things like comfort and support, which we all need all the time. And so part of being a Jesus follower, which is what all of us are, is knowing we can cry out to God and that God listens. And we always have a friend and a father and a mother and a parent in God who wants to provide things for us. And that's a really cool thing to remember. And that's a part of having faith. And so I want you this week to do a couple things. Okay? One, I want you to be thankful. You know how Thanksgiving is coming up next month? Well, every day is supposed to be Thanksgiving for us. And I don't mean that we just eat turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce. That's not what I mean. I mean we're supposed to be thankful. Because everything that we have in our lives, all the food, water, toys, our homes, our families, people we love, friends, those all come from God. And therefore we should be really thankful for having those things, shouldn't we? Because God gives them to us because God loves us. They're gifts. But we are also gifts to each other. And how can we be gifts to each other? Well, like what I was talking about earlier, we can help to provide for each other. So we can give food, or we can share, or we can even just be a friend to somebody who needs it. So this week, those are the two things I want you to do. I want you to be thankful for what you have, and then I want you to share and figure out how you can be a gift to someone else. And if you are able to do those two things for the rest of your life, you're going to be way better off. Believe me, it's going to be it's going to be a pretty fun ride if you stick to those rules. Well, my friends, it is so good to be with you again this week. I hope you're great. I hope you have an even better next week, and that you learn lots of cool stuff in school and get to have some good experiences and make new friends and find new ways to help people and show love, because that's what we're all about. I love you all. I will see you around, and have a great rest of your day and a rest of your Sunday and a rest of your week. Bye-bye now.